Well, my students definitely were engaged by my art activity today. I just wish I could get them to put their supplies away in a more organized fashion. My classroom is a mess.
Let's see here. Judging from these anchor charts, this classroom must be on Earth. Mid-21st century, I should think. Oh. Pleased to meet you. I'm the professor.
Professor what?
Just the professor.
Say, are you that mysterious time traveler who goes around helping teachers with professional development?
The very same. My teacher workroom picked up on your need for effective classroom procedures and transitions. Now, there are 3 key things to follow: explain, demonstrate, and rehearse. Fancy a trip around the time stream to get some expert advice?
Yeah, let's do it. It's
Slightly more spacious on the interior? I get that a lot. Now, first stop, Rome, 42 BCE. Let's learn how to explain procedures from a real professional.
They gave willingly. Not their land or their fields or their households, but... Oh, curious. And you are?
I'm the professor, and this is Shannon. Shannon, meet Hortensia, one of the great orators of the classical world. Hortensia, meet Shannon, a teacher who could use some help explaining procedures and transitions.
Well, students cannot perform what they do not understand, and communication is the beginning of understanding. You must be clear, succinct, and consistent with all your instructions and expectations if you want the senators, students, to listen to you.
Brilliant. Now we're off to get more advice about demonstrating and rehearsing. Hortensia, would you like to come along?
Well, I have a speech at the forum tomorrow. Can you get me back in time?
Time is my specialty. That and professional development.
Welcome to Launch Your Classroom. I'm Kyle Pope. I want you to take a second and think about your weekday morning routine. It probably goes something like this. Get up, have breakfast, brush your teeth, take a shower, and get ready for work. Even if it doesn't sound exactly like that, I'm sure you have some sort of method to help you prepare for the day. The repetition keeps us in check so we don't have to consciously think about what we're doing. That enables us to spend time concentrating on other important items like creating a new engagement activity or getting through to that hard-to-reach student. Just like we need routines in place for our daily lives, so do our students in the form of procedures and transitions. Procedures and transitions help our students to know exactly what to do in a variety of circumstances. When taught well and practiced often, students develop good habits that will meet your expectations without even thinking about it. You'll notice an increase in your classroom management and extra time to teach your curriculum. So let's take a look at one of the most important procedures, starting your class.
Okay, gang, we have traveled back in time 1 week. Let's see how Shannon begins her class.
Class, it's really time to begin. Can we please use our classroom voices? Class, clap once if you can hear me.
Fear not, Shannon. Look around the room and tell me what you see.
Okay, well, Clarice and Sully came in very loudly, and now the whole class is even more distracted.
Miss Shannon, I want to begin the bell work, but I don't have any supplies.
Class, it's time to
She
begin.
can't even hear me.
They do not seem to have the proper supplies ready for instruction to begin.
What can I do to get my students engaged and productive at the beginning of class?
All you need are beginning of class procedures. Procedures are cool. Back in a flash. There, that's better.
Where did you just go?
Just a quick visit to the U from this morning. I gave her, you, some simple strategies on how to begin class effectively.
Today we're going to learn about the amazing history and technique of Pablo Picasso.
Wow, those must have been some strategies.
You'd be surprised how just a few little things can change everything. Take the front door, for instance. Adding this welcome sign reminds students to enter quietly, get their supplies, and start their bell work before they even set foot in the room.
When students walk in quietly and see others already working, the mood and expectations are set for a productive start. This also gives students structure, and they do better with structure.
Wow, this sign is a friendly and welcoming visual reminder about how to start class.
Exactly. Now, make sure to have necessary materials ready for your students to use. Having them by the door as they enter or in baskets at their tables will get things moving quickly.
If your students have everything they need right when they need it, they will use their time wisely and immediately start their bell work.
And I could even take roll while they're doing their work. A little multitasking could save me some time and even help keep the students on task.
Now you're getting it. The simple act of greeting your students as they arrive will make them feel so welcome. And seeing you there will hold them accountable for their behavior.
Not to mention how important it is to building good relationships and positive rapport.
Rapport at the door. It's also a great opportunity to monitor their behavior, just say hello, and show them that I care.
Perfect. Okay, everyone, we have more work to do. Time to be going.
I like your necklace.
One of the biggest favors you could do for your students is provide them with consistency. When students know what you expect of them, they are less likely to misbehave and more likely to perform well since they can devote their energy to your content. As procedures become second nature to your students, you will be surprised at how much time and energy you save every day. While you can create procedures for almost any classroom situation, there are 5 procedures you'll want to have in place from the very first day of school. Consider these procedures to be non-negotiables. Their presence sets the stage for learning success, while their absence makes it hard for learning to take place. Having students rehearse these procedures from day one will make them second nature. Ready? Let's take a look. Entering the room. The way a student enters your room sets a tone for your expectations for the rest of the day. Students should come into your room politely and quietly, being careful to respect the personal space of others. Rehearse with your students where they should put their bags, if they should get a computer or other materials before sitting, and what counts as being late to class. Gathering and turning in materials. When a teacher hands out every pencil and takes up every paper assignment, the minutes add up. You could save precious instructional time by creating procedures for materials gathering. When turning in assignments, students can pick up work on a schedule that you have created and place it in a designated tray. Procedures like these minimize traffic in your classroom and save time. Recognition to speak. You want your students to be comfortable participating in class in an appropriate way. Teach them from the very first day how to raise their hands, not interrupt one another, and use other appropriate hand signals to indicate what they need. Leaving seats. Students need to know under what circumstances they can get up from their seats and move around the room. Again, establish appropriate hand raising or hand signals, passes or sign-outs for leaving the room, and brain breaks so students can get up, stretch, and refresh. Transitions to lunch, recess, and specials. It's very important to let students know when and how they should line up for leaving the room as a group. Explain to them that they should line up quietly without touching their classmates and facing forward. Clarify where the line should begin and end to avoid blocking doors, and how students are expected to behave in the hallways. When teachers consistently explain, model, and rehearse these procedures at the very beginning of the school year, students will know what to do. That's less time you have to spend correcting behaviors and more time for learning, praise, and student growth. Be sure to meet your students on the first day of school with procedures that prepare your students for success.
How come everything's in black and white?
Ah, it's an observation filter from the workroom. Some people are surprised to see the past in color. There we are.
Who's this strange fellow on the floor?
May I present Mr. Charles Chaplin, one of the great performers of the 20th century. Hey there, Charlie. Big fan. I loved Modern Times.
Modern Times? Well, that's a capital name for a film.
So, Charlie, we're here researching how to clearly demonstrate procedures and transitions in the classroom. Any tips?
Oh, indeed. The most important thing you can have is your class's attention. Your demonstrations must be conducted with flair if you hope to engage your audience. Well, students. Be fearless and have a sense of humor.
Thanks, Mr. Chaplin.
Now, we're going to need someone with experience in rehearsing procedures, practicing transitions on a large scale. Say, Charlie, are you up for a trip to Waterloo?
Wow, Napoleon Bonaparte, you're taller than I was expecting.
I get that a lot. What can I do for you, mademoiselle?
Well, I'd really appreciate some advice about how to rehearse procedures with my class.
Ah, most noble endeavor. To truly learn your procedures, your students must practice as much as possible. The only way to improve is to drill, drill, drill. Then, having your forces, students, rehearse will make them effective when the time comes to perform. Remember, ability is nothing without opportunity.
Great advice. Now, Shannon, are you ready to put it all together?
I'm ready, Professor.
Then let's do it. Come along, Bonaparte.
Whew, just in time for my next class.
Break a leg.
Hi, class. You did such a great job getting into your seats and taking out your supplies. Last week, we made our very own Picasso portraits. Today, we're going to do a collaborative critique of our artwork. So, let's get into our groups and begin.
Where should we go? I don't know.
See you, Patrick.
Can I be in your group? What are we supposed to do?
This is not going as smoothly as I'd hoped it would. What can I do to help my students move into their groups? Wait, I remember. I need to communicate my instructions clearly and succinctly. And I'll do that in a way that's fun and engaging. Of course, this is a great opportunity to rehearse my procedures so that my students feel comfortable making this transition. All right, I've got this. All right, class, let's try this again. I'm going to describe the activity and provide some instructions. You'll be able to ask questions when I'm finished, but remember to raise your hand and listen when someone is talking. Okay, so today's
First, establish a no talking rule so students will be able to hear all of your instructions. Then, open the floor for questions. This allows students to feel heard and encourages them to listen more patiently, knowing they will have a chance to speak soon. Let's see what else Ms. Shannon does to set her students up for success.
Once we're in our groups, we will each take turns discussing our art, and then each person in the group will spend 1 minute responding. Then we'll write down 3 things we learned during this activity. I'll start a timer for each step so you know exactly what to do. Are there any questions? Yes, Patrick.
How will we know where to go?
That's a great question. I have your seats all mapped out and I'll show them to you in just a minute. But remember, we won't move until we hear the
Zylogo!
That's right. And when we do move, be sure to bring your artwork with you. Everything else you need is already at your workstations. All right, let's see that seat map.
It is important to create your groups well before the activity. Purposeful planning will save valuable instructional time, and students will be less likely to complain or ask to sit with their friends. Think carefully about how you group your students. Mix up kinesthetic, visual, and audio learners so each group includes a variety of skill sets. Keeping disruptive students apart from one another will help the whole class stay on task. Be sure to display your seat map after you've given all of your instructions. Otherwise, students will become distracted and miss important information.
Okay, is everybody ready? You'll have 1 minute to get into your groups. When you hear the cue, start to move.
Using a fun cue gets all your students moving at once, and a timer ensures this process happens quickly. Set up your materials in advance so the students can focus on getting into groups rather than gathering supplies. Be sure to move around the room, monitoring for student behavior. Place a step-by-step breakdown of the activity at each workstation. You've already given these instructions, but students will perform better when they have a handy reference. Remind them of key times as they're working, but don't call out so often that it interrupts their thinking process.
Okay, we've got 1 more minute, so start to wrap up your final thoughts. And time. Who would like to share what they learned during our collaborative critique?
Ending with a lively discussion is far more engaging than silent desk work, but you can still assign a grade to hold students accountable for their collaboration. No matter what, the process of speaking and listening will add value to the students' learning.
Just remember, whatever methods you decide to use, they should be established at the start of the year and practiced until they are second nature. This enables you to create safe and efficient classroom movement and provides your students with everything they need to learn and grow. So, now that class is over, are you ready for one more adventure?
I think I've got the time.
Now you're getting it!
Once you have created your procedures for your classroom, it's time to make sure they stick. We already know that we need to explain our procedures clearly, demonstrate them for students to model, and rehearse them regularly. What else will help our students remember what to do each day? That's right, we need to display the procedures on the walls of the classroom. Studies show that the majority of our students are visual learners. Never underestimate the power of a bold, eye-catching poster to remind your students of your procedures. When a student looks around the room, and even the most attentive ones will, make sure that they are looking at meaningful content on your walls. So, how can your posters have the greatest effect in helping students remember your expectations? Well, here are a few tips. Your poster should be bold, with text big enough to read from any location in the room. Make sure to use simple language that all your students can read fluently. Since you will rehearse the procedures regularly, the posters can be briefly and simply worded. Hang your posters close to the locations where the procedures are needed. If your students line up for lunch, hang your lineup procedures where the line starts. Instructions for turning in work can be posted above the baskets where students put their assignments. Remind your students of proper computer pickup and return with a poster directly above the computer cart. It's important to place your posters at student eye level. If your students cannot see the posters, they are less likely to remember them. If your students' desks or tables face different parts of the classroom, consider putting up duplicate posters of your most important procedures so that all of your students have equal access to your reminders. Keep your procedure posters up to date. It's important to change your procedures as the year goes on to better suit your students and their needs. When you change a procedure, explain, model, and rehearse it regularly. And update the procedures on your walls to reflect these changes. Refer to your posters. Each time you review a procedure with your students, stand by the poster and point to the steps as you speak. That way, students remember where to reference it and benefit from the visual reinforcement. Students thrive when they clearly understand your expectations. Posters that reinforce your classroom procedures are one more way of communicating processes that will keep your students safer, on task, and ready to learn.
Procedures and transitions are critical components of a well-run classroom. They provide consistency on a day-to-day basis, creating good habits for your students and allowing them to concentrate on your lesson. So I encourage you to determine which procedures and transitions you need, and create them, explain them, demonstrate them, and allow your students to rehearse them. And please feel free to use some of the strategies we've provided for you today. This month on Launch Your Classroom, we'll continue to take a look at procedures and transitions. We're going to demonstrate a few different ways you can distribute materials to cut down on student distractions and wasted instructional time. Then we're going to share some tips for creating healthy personal routines. And to wrap up the month, we'll sit down with an expert educator to discuss some of the common questions teachers have about procedures and transitions. So be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel to get all of our upcoming professional development content. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on Launch Your Classroom.
I'm glad we got Hortensia back to the forum in time for her speech.
And here's Waterloo, just as we left it, Napoleon.
Oui, merci, Professor. You know, this wonderful experience has me rethinking tomorrow's strategy.
Well, we'll see you in the history books. Shannon, let's get you back to your time. Come on, Charlie.